thee, then at last to live with thee. Amen.
Dr.
Now,
Davis will come and open with prayer for us.
Again, good morning, saints.
Good morning.
Let's bow our heads. Thank Father, we're so grateful that we have not had a day to honor, glorify your name. We ask that you will be with us and let the topics that are discussed be applied, that we may receive your blessings, that we may be prepared to let others know your love, your goodness, your mercy to us. So be with those who are on the way. And we thank you for your presence. You have promised. We ask these favors with thanksgiving in your holy name. Amen.
Okay, be seated, please. And again, we want to welcome you to this second to last day of our medical missionary training. It was good being with you, and I'm missing it already, although it was so much hard work. Who's this? To get this off. Yes, we're going to get this. Oh, is it moving now? All right. Okay then, well, we have a 3 minutes devotional thought before we bring on our first presenter. And today is a Sabbath day. I know that there are many of us, we are all Seventh-day Adventists, but you know, the Sabbath is one of the most powerful symbolism in creation, in the Christian world. There are three things I want to mention that the Sabbath points to. Number one, the Sabbath points to Jesus as our creator. To Jesus as our what, everybody?
Creator.
As our creator. For in 6 days the Lord made what? Heaven and earth. And all that is, he made it in 6 days. And if you remember that at the end of this 6th day, then he rested. So, because man had everything he wanted. So when we rest on the Sabbath day, it is pointing to Jesus as the one who provided all our physical necessities. All our physical necessities. And if we believe that, we will not have to worry. Amen? Because he provided Adam's necessities before Adam was created. Remember that? When Adam was made, was there any lack in God's creation? No. So it's the same thing with us. When we keep the Sabbath, it must point to Jesus as the one who has already provided all our physical needs. That's why we can rest on the Sabbath and do not worry about our rent, about our mortgage, about our car payments, or about our school fees. We don't have to worry if we believe that Jesus is our creator. It is possible for us to be resting on the Sabbath day, but we're not resting in God. The second thing it points to is Jesus as our Redeemer, right? When man strayed away from God by his sin, Christ came and died for us. And on what day did he rest? What day did he rest? Sabbath. So for those of us who are trusting in Jesus, we are resting in his redemptive work. Most Adventists don't do that. Most Adventists focus on what they can do for God rather than what God can do for them. Are you with me? And it makes a world of difference. The difference between all religion and the Christian religion is the other religion focus on what they can do for God. But we focus on what God has done for us already in Christ. When Christ died to save us, were any one of you here?
No.
So before you came here, Christ provided what? Salvation. Just as in Genesis, he provided the physical necessities before you were born. Before you were born, also, he provided all your spiritual resources. Isn't that a wonderful God?
Yeah.
So therefore, if you keep the Sabbath without focusing on the lovely Lord of the Sabbath day, you will not receive the blessings of the Sabbath. You remember when Christ came here, he said, come unto me what? That labor and are heavy laden, I will what? Give you rest. Now, he was initially talking to a group of people who were keeping the Sabbath. These were Jews, but although they were keeping the day of rest, they never had any rest of soul, rest of mind and spirit, because they were focusing on the rules of the Sabbath rather than having a relationship with Jesus. Are you with me, folks?
Yeah.
And the main object of the medical missionary work is to do what? The main object of the medical missionary work is to do what?
Sick men and women to the
Point sick men and women to the man of Calvary. It's the main purpose of the Sabbath too. To point sick men and women to the only one who can give them rest of mind, rest of body. So if you're a restless Adventist, although you keep the Sabbath, it simply means that you're not resting in Jesus. So the Sabbath points to Jesus as our Creator and our Redeemer. It also points to Him as our Restorer. The last thing, it points to Him as our Restorer. Isaiah tells us that from one Sabbath and from one new moon to another, we will go up to what? Jerusalem to what? Worship Christ. So through Christ, all things will be restored to its original beauty. And the only way we can be in that ultimate restoration is if we are in Christ. If any man be in Christ, he's a what? New creature. All things are passed away and all things become new. That's the beginning of the restoration in Christ now. And ultimately Christ will come up with an end to all this wickedness, restlessness, and will usher in paradise, Eden restored. So as we keep the Sabbath day, I know you're going to have a lot of teachings. You're going to hear a lot of stuff, but will you be focusing on the lovely Lord, the Lord said, Jesus? If not, you will not have any rest today of your soul or your body. So I encourage you today to focus on Jesus as we keep the Sabbath, because the Sabbath points to Him as Creator, as Recreator, and Restorer. Amen? Father, help us to focus on you today, in Jesus' name. Amen. We're happy to have Dr. Terry Long with us. He's one of our long-standing presenters. Dr. Terry Long, does a lot of work. He works with the government. He has his own clinics. He is an elder in one of our church. He's married. And the father of how many children, sir? 5 children. He needs 7 more to reach Jacob. I don't know if he's still going to go for more. They're still working. He's very knowledgeable in his craft and a very passionate presenter. And we're happy to have you, Dr. Terry Long. A number of our students seem to be coming still, but the early board will get the most work on. So welcome, sir. God bless you.
Thank you.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Happy Sabbath.
Happy Sabbath.
So good to be with you. I really wanted to be here much earlier so we could have started on time. But with the rain and so on, traffic was slowed down. Just looking around if I recognize anybody in the...
It's a whole new group, Dr. Terry.
Yes. So anybody know me? You? Yes, you're I was about to say. Remind me of your name? Okay, very good. I've been to New Rochelle more than once too. It's good to be here with you. What's your name? Huh? Marie, okay. And your name? Bacchus.
From New Rochelle.
Bacchus, you said?
Yes.
Bacchus is a St. Vincent name.
The Chinese name.
Okay. All right. Now, we're going to be rushing through depression, and then we get to anxiety. If I can slip in some anxiety and depression, then we'll do so. But I need you to pay close attention, because you also have this in your handout, right? In your CD. We don't talk about books anymore. Talk about the CD. So let's say Okay, what is depression? Now everyone feels sad sometimes, but these feelings usually pass after a few days. Isn't that so? Sometimes there's a death in the family. Sometimes there is a loss of a job. But usually after some time this passes. But when you have depression, you may have trouble with your daily life and what?
1 minute there, Dr. Terry. I want to make sure that they are with you in the folder. What section is Dr. Terry on? Q. Everybody is there? Stress management. There are 3 presentations.
Yeah, it's major depression, but I'm guessing you revised it.
With the healthy relationship.
Yes.
There are three of them there.
There is.
Revised it?
These things are are constantly up.
Yes.
It says major depression, the last
Right.
one.
Yeah.
Okay, so they can take some notes.
Yes.
Everybody is there? Major depression. Even if you don't cover everything, you get the essence of it. Everybody is there?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, very good. So remember that depression is a serious illness. Many times when individuals suffer from depression, we usually play around with it. It is not something to be played with. And a lot of us as Seventh-day Adventists, when somebody says they are depressed, we usually just say, go pray about it and leave it alone. God will take care of it. God is the God of the impossibilities and He can do everything. But there are times when we need somebody to help us through. Are you with me?
Yes.
And every depressed person is potentially suicidal. Are you with me?
Yes.
Hence the seriousness of that entity. Now, a lot of individuals also believe that people are working Jumbi on them. You know what I'm talking about?
Yes.
Huh? And Guzuman and whatever else it is. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yes.
Hobia, voodoo,
Yes.
you know, and so on. And when somebody is depressed, it's because somebody is doing something to them. Listen, when we believe in God, huh? And we are covered under the Holy Spirit, nothing can touch us.
Nothing.
Believe kills and believe cures. So we have to believe in God who can cure us. Are you with me? So there are different types of depression. The first one I just want to mention of is major depression, where there are severe symptoms that interfere with your ability to what? To function, which to work, to sleep, to study, to eat, and to enjoy life. That's major depression. There is an interference in these abilities to do these things. So if you find individuals are slacking off from going to work, huh? They're not having interest in their daily life, you know, there's some element of depression that is going on. Are you with me?
Yes.
Good. So there's another type which is called dysthymia or dysthymia disorder. This depression, it lasts for a longer time than 2 years. Now, the symptoms are not as severe as major depression. Then there is minor depression, which is similar to major depression and dysthymia, but the symptoms are not as severe and they do not last as long. Now remember, folks, depression is on a spectrum. So one can be severely depressed, or the person might just be a little depressed. But the person who is just a little depressed with minor depression, it can move through the spectrum to become what? Major depression. Now what makes my job a little difficult is individuals do not come for treatment until they're in major depression. You come to me when you're in minor depression, oh, it's cheese. It's easy to work with. Are you with me? Cost you less visit and everything. But when you're in major depression, it is so difficult because there's so many other factors that we have to look at. The person in major depression can also have psychotic symptoms. Are you with me? Can also have what?
Psychotic symptoms.
When we talk about psychotic symptoms, we're talking about hearing voices, seeing things, feel like things are crawling on their skin, having illusion and misrepresentation of what is actually seen. So you may see a cat and the person may interpret it as a lion. So we have to be very careful, and anytime you hear of somebody with a little depression, help them to seek treatment. Now, I have to caution the group. If you're not trained in dealing with these issues, do not attempt to deal with it. Are you hearing me?
Yes.
Because it's a specialty that if you're not able to understand all of the dynamics, then make a referral to somebody who can deal with it. As medical missionaries, sometimes people believe that you can address every issue, but you can't. Are you with me?
Yeah.
So when somebody comes to you and relates a problem about depression or any mental illness to you, then you have a responsibility. Recognize that they do not just want to share their problems. Are you hearing me?
Yes.
They do not only want to share their problem, they're seeking help. So if you cannot help them, then refer them to the appropriate sources. Are you with me?
Oh, yes.
Okay. Now, depression is increasing so much, and we cannot even tell you 1 in 4 women are known to have depression. 1 in 8 men are suffering from depression. So, who is affected by depression more, male or female? Females. Are you with me? Now, how many females are here? And how many males? I'm happy to see some males represent, because it's like the male species is becoming extinct when it comes to education
Yes,
and
it
so
is.
on.
Amen.
And I'm happy to see the men here. So, it affects about 350 million people worldwide. About how many?
350 million.
And it affects about 20 million Americans. So every time you see 3 individuals, one of them is potentially depressed. Are you hearing me?
Yes.
So if we look in here today and see how many, we can see about how many of us are depressed. What if I should tell you I feel depressed right now? Would you believe me? You wouldn't believe me? Huh? That's right. So many individuals look happy and bouncy and so on, but there's a raging war going on deep inside of them. And you know, yesterday I saw somebody, and when I saw them, the person who referred them to me had no idea the type of mental problem that they were going through. Are you with me?
Yeah.
And at the end of the session, he said, I am pulling out he was balding like myself. He said, I'm pulling out hair from my head because I just could not recognize what was happening. I said, but that's not your specialty. Are you with me?
Yes, yes.
Are you hearing what I'm saying?
Yes.
I'm sending a message to the group.
Yes.
Because there are times that we become loose cannons with a little knowledge and believe that we can fix everything.
Yes.
Are you hearing me?
Yes.
All right. Now, I see that there's about $70 billion that is being spent every year in the United States because of productivity loss. Now, think about how many individuals in the church that is depressed. Can you think of any? Don't answer. But just look among yourselves and see what is happening. They're not attending church as they usually do. Huh? You call them, they make excuses. Huh? They're staying in bed, they're not doing what they should be doing, just loss of interest. Huh? There's some element of depression that is going on there. Now, I gave you this information already, and I'm going to just slip by that and give you, now I need you to just write these down. Although they're in your book, I need you to just write them down. Because for us to diagnose an individual with depression, they have to have at least 5 of these 9 symptoms present. At least how many? 9. No. 5 of these 9 symptoms. For somebody to be labeled with depression, they should have at least 5 of these 9 depression symptoms. The first one is what? Deep sadness. Then apathy. Apathy is like a loss of energy. Then they become agitated. The least little thing, I pass beside this lady here, and my hand brushed by her, and she's ready to jump on me. Huh? Just get upset for no apparent reason. Agitation. Sleep disturbance. Sometimes the sleeping is too little or too much. Are you with me?
Yes.
And then there is weight or appetite changes, meaning that they may be losing weight or they may be gaining weight.
Sir, you mentioned sleep disturbance. How does insomnia fit into that?
That's insomnia. Sleep disturbance is really when you're not able to sleep much. So,
Or what if I suffer from sleep apnea?
sleep apnea is different. Sleep
You
apnea
can't
is
sleep, you don't
during sleep, then you actually stop breathing for a little time. That's sleep apnea. Okay?
Sleep disturbance is the same as insomnia.
And sleep disturbance in this sense, when you're disturbed in sleep, it means that you might be sleeping too much or too little. When you have insomnia, it means that you have difficulty sleeping, period. Understand? Does everybody understand that?
Yes.
That's not that I'm depressed.
It could be a sign of depression. Could be, but not necessarily. And then there is lack of concentration, feeling of what? Worthlessness, morbid thoughts, and fatigue. Now, what do we refer to as morbid thoughts?
Suicide.
Talking about death.
Yes.
An impending sense of doom. Okay? So, remember a few minutes ago we said that every depressed person is potentially what? Suicidal. So this really, come on. Okay, good. So morbid thoughts is one of the most serious of these symptoms here.
Yes.
There's a certain area in the brain that is affected when one has these morbid thoughts. Now, it is not something that the individual can control because of the biochemical imbalances. Now, I need you also to listen to this carefully. Are you listening?
Yes.
Miss Bacchus, are you listening?
Yes.
Yeah, remember your name. The enemy of our souls, he is always trying to implant in our minds seeds of doubt, seeds of insecurities, seeds of anxieties, seeds of depression. Are you hearing me?
Yes.
And he catches us off guard. So there are times when the enemy will throw something at you, but because you're caught off guard, You're not aware that the enemy is working behind the scene to create a disturbance in you. Are you with me? So he will tell you that there is no need to live. Bear in mind that, what's your name? Camilla. Bear in mind that our thoughts are constantly lying to us. Our thoughts are what?
Constantly lying.
The problem is not the lies, it's when we believe these lies. Are you with me so far?
Yes.
So when the enemy tells you or puts suggestions and thoughts in your head and you believe it, that's where the major problem lies. So one of the things we have to learn to do with depression is to be able to recognize, to be able to what? Recognize negative thoughts. Now, when we recognize negative thoughts, then we do not bring those thoughts into our belief system. Are you hearing me? Now, Camilla, she is behavior. And here we have, what's your name?
Marluz.
Marluz? Yes. Marluz. And over here we have Lorene. Now, Lorene is thoughts. Waters? Carlos? Marluz is belief system. And over there we have Camilla, who is our behavior. So over here, we have a thought that comes in. We have a what?
Thought.
A thought that comes in. Now, we must be able to recognize if the thought is what? Negative or positive. Now, I'm gonna throw a thought here. I hadn't had breakfast for morning. I'm not very hungry. Did you all have breakfast?
Yes.
And didn't leave any for me? So the only thing that I see on this table that I probably could eat is some cayenne pepper. Is that a positive or a negative thought? Let me make sure I put it at the right place. If it is such a negative thought, why tonight before you go to bed, you call your friends and neighbors and telling them that the presenter was talking about eating cayenne pepper? Are you with me?
Yes.
Are you with me?
Yes.
Because we are fed, we are propelled by negativity. So the brain catches any negative thought and runs with it.
Mercy.
Are you with me?
Yes.
Are you getting the point?
Yes.
So, Miss Wallace here, when she gets this thought about eating that bottle of cayenne pepper, is going to block that.
Yes.
So it is not coming over into our belief system.
Yes.
So we're not feeding on the thought and says, maybe if I dilute it a little bit, maybe if I just eat a little bit of it, maybe if I just do this. We're not processing that negative thought. Are you with me?
Yes.
So it doesn't have to go over to the belief system, to our behavior, because it's from our behavior now we act. We act from we merge the thought with our belief system, and then we come over into the action. Are you with me? So before we do anything, we must have a what? A thought. Now that thought must also merge with our what?
Belief system.
Belief system. And that belief system now is going to propel what we do. Are you with me?
Yes.
Now let me ask a question here. Are we together?
Yes.
Maybe not? I need two dogs. I need 2 dogs. Here, can you see this?
2 apples.
Where's she's not seeing me, right? I'm using her onions. But here we have 2 dogs. Don't miss a beat, because I need you to understand the concept.
Okay.
These 2 dogs are always fighting. Always what?
Fighting.
But I realize that if I only feed one of them, what will happen to the other one? They will starve and what? And die. So here it is that I have been feeding this one, and this one is getting weaker and weaker and weaker and weaker until it dies, right? Like that. So we have this that we're feeding strong and healthy, right? What if we could do that with our thoughts? The enemy is on one side and God is on the other side. And God has given us so much in His Word, so many promises for us to feed on. Are you with me?
Yes.
So one of the thought or one of the reassurances God has given us is He says we should wait on Him. And we should be of good courage. And He will strengthen our hearts. And He says, wait, I say, on the Lord. What if we could actually feed on that thought? Are you with me?
Yes.
What would happen to us?
Get stronger.
We would have patience.
Yes.
We would have what?
Patience.
So that when we pray and something doesn't happen, we wouldn't lack trust. We would still trust in God. But let me ask you now, what if, just what if, the thought comes to you or somebody comes to you and tell you that somebody brought an entity, that's what they call it, from one of the Caribbean countries and put it in their home. Are you with me? They brought a what?
Entity.
Have you ever heard that?
Yes. Yes.
Huh? I'm not calling it no dog, they're calling it an entity. That's what they call it. So, and this entity in the home is causing all type of different problems. What if you would remember Psalm 27? The Lord is my shepherd. The Lord is my light and my salvation. Whom or what shall I fear? The Lord is the strength of my life. Of whom or of what shall I fear? Are you hearing what I'm saying to you? So the thoughts that comes to us, it's what we do with the thoughts. Now, remember something about depression, folks. Depression is something that can occur because of a neurochemical imbalance. There are various chemicals in our brain that helps to keep us stable. Are you with me? The primary neurotransmitter that operates in the prefrontal cortex is called dopamine. And I'm sure you have learned about that during the course of the time, right? Dopamine. Now, the prefrontal cortex is that area of your brain that helps you to make decisions. The prefrontal cortex is that area of the brain that keeps you on track, keeps you on target towards your goal. Are you hearing me? The prefrontal cortex is that area of your brain that helps you to keep your impulse in control. So I have a clicker here, and I said to myself this morning, I'm coming here and I'm looking for somebody that I'm going to throw this at. Let me throw this at that. What's your name, sir?
Webb.
Mr. Webb. And I'm sure I've seen you before, right? Right, sir?
Something memory loss.
Yes? I'm not remember. I should know you more, right? Yes. Okay, you remind me pretty soon. But a thought came to me to, what if I act on that thought? What will happen? Huh?
Hurt him and people think something's wrong.
Yes. It would hurt him. I would get in trouble. That's my little Sunday and my wife beside her, in case you never know her, right? I would get in trouble. Now, if we could do some consequential reasoning or thinking before we do things, then we would avoid a lot of the problems. Now, bear in mind that sometimes what we call our cognitive space, which is our reasoning space, is so narrow that by the time the thought comes to us, we act because it is so narrow. We do not have time to what? To process. Are you with me? Are you following? Yes. What if we were able to widen, to increase that cognitive space? So the thought comes over here and we have some time to think and to process and to reason about the consequences, then we would find ourselves not doing what the thought says. Are you with me? Are you getting the content?
Mm-hmm.
Who is understanding? Who is not understanding? You, it seem like I lost you. Eh? What's your name?
I'm with you.
That was the question. What's your name?
Melly.
Very good. Okay. I'm happy that everybody is following, because if you're not, just ask me to back up a little bit. Okay? So, I'm going to move on to if you experience increased or decreased appetite, meaning that if you weigh 100 pounds and you gain or you lose 5 or more pounds, or if you weigh 150 pounds and you gain or lost 7 pounds, or if you weigh 200 pounds and you gain or lost 10 pounds, that's what we refer to as appetite changes. All right, something similar to that. Okay, and sleeping 40 minutes more or less per day. Okay. Now, here are some other symptoms put in a different way. Feeling sad or empty. Feeling hopeless, irritable, anxious, or what? Now, do not underestimate guilt. I see a hand over there.
One thing I still with most of the psychologists,
Did you say most psychologists suffer from depression? Why you say that? I'm going to share something with you. I was going to share it after, but let me share it now. Are you hearing me? A lot of individuals in the field of mental health suffer from a lot of mental problems, including depression, and sometimes they even commit suicide. Are you hearing me?
Yes.
Earlier on, I made mention of a factor, which is the demonic entrances. Are you hearing me?
Yes.
The primary goal of the enemy is death. Anything that comes under that is just a consequence or a sequelae or something that will follow. Are you with me?
Yes.
Yes.
So the ultimate goal is what?
Death.
Death. Now, pay attention. Pay attention. If the enemy has been able to infuse a thought in your head, and you follow that thought, the behavior will follow. Are you with me?
You're right, yeah.
Now, do you remember a couple of years ago, a young man shot 20 kids and 5 adults and then turned the gun on himself? You remember? Somewhere in Connecticut. Shortly after that, I was at a church doing a presentation on depression. And somebody asked me what was going on into the mind of that individual, why he could have done something like that. Are you hearing me? I'm answering your question, sir. Anytime you are able to get deep inside somebody's mind to understand his demonic presence, what you're doing is you're merging your mind with the mind of the enemy.
Have mercy. Have mercy.
Repeat that.
Have mercy.
Repeat that. Please.
Say it again. Anytime you get in a position that you need to understand, or you feel that you need to understand all of the dynamics that cause a person to do such depraved acts, you run the risk of merging your mind with the mind of the enemy.
In other words, certain things need not be understood.
In other words, what I do is I ask God to be able to help me to be able to recognize that there's a problem and how to treat it. One psychiatrist said he's been working for 30 years and has never been able to cure anybody. Why? Because he was looking to himself as a healer. Who is the ultimate healer? God is the ultimate healer. And when individuals come to me, when I pray, I ask God to do the healing. I just point them to God and help them in the process how to get there. Are you with me?
Okay.
But we have to recognize our nothingness. Are you with me? There's so many individuals that have come in my presence and they're being healed. Do I take any credit for it? No. Not one credit. It's not my doing. Are you with me? We have to empty ourselves of self. So, when you find a lot of these people working in mental illness get a little off, it's because they're trying to understand too deeply and merging with what they have no business with. Amen. Are you understanding? Mm-hmm. Good. I'm sorry it wasn't a straightforward answer, but I needed to go to do that to explain. Okay. So you have all of those. So several factors cause depression. One of them is the genetic. Now, you cannot do anything about your genetics. Can you? No. The genetics is what you get from your mother and your grandmother and your grandfather and so on. You cannot do anything about that, right? Can you? No. Some of the things I'd like to change. I have high blood pressure from my family. I'd love to change that. But of course, there are factors that I can do, things that I can do to reduce the risk, right? Okay. Then there is brain chemistry. People with depression have what different? Brain chemistry than those without depression and without that illness. So sometimes there's what is called a PET scan that we look at. And when we look at these PET scans, we can see the actual changes in the brain with people with depression. Okay? And then there is stress. By the way, before I even go to stress, let me say environment also contributes to your to depression. Now, can you imagine living with a person who is constantly nagging? Somebody who is constantly abusive? Can you imagine? What would happen?
It's going to affect you.
Can you imagine growing up with a father that is an abuser of alcohol or drugs and is always aggressive and abusive? Can you imagine a mother who's always drinking alcohol and doing and cursing in the street and so on? Can you imagine? the environment, right? And many individuals become depressed because of just the environment. And sometimes we cannot do anything about the environment that we grew up in. Did you get that?
That's right.
The environment that you grew up in, when we were born, there was nothing I could do about where I was living.
That's right.
But of course, I did work to change that.
There you go.
Are you with me?
Yes.
I did work to what?
Change it.
Now, I did not have a better father. I would not change my father for nothing. Are you with me? Are you with me? Thank God this year he turns 90 and he's still alive. I would not change him for anything. All right? If I wasn't here today, I would have been spending some time with him today. I'm saying that because I need you folks to realize that your limitations that you have in your life does not determine your outcome. Some of us, because we were born in certain situations, we stay in it and we become a victim. Constantly a what? A victim. Can you help a victim? No. Because the victim always position themselves to be helped. Some of you don't know what I'm talking about. Yes.
How can you help someone to, like what you said, someone always become from a victim? How can you make them strong and release that victim avoid, putting that on someone?
They need what we refer to as cognitive restructuring. Okay? Cognitive restructuring is to help them to understand who they are, where they are in psychologically, and help them to change that way of thinking. Are you with me? So they need what we call psychotherapy. Okay? Good.
What's the difference between psychotherapy and
And what I
I
do?
don't do these presentations.
Yes, I do psychotherapy also.
Oh, okay.
Okay, good. So stress, the loss of a loved one, a difficult relationship, or any stressful situation can trigger depression. Now, you talk about depression and stress. We do not need to go outside of the church to experience stress. True or false? We can just look right in our midst and see the source of our stress. And let's say we do not want to look within the church. Then just look within the home.
Yes, yes.
Then just look within the work environment.
Yes.
Huh? Are you understanding what I'm saying?
Yes.
So stress is one of the number one cause of a lot of these depressions that you see that is occurring. We have 5 minutes. I see the preacher coming. Now, we did say women experience depression more than men. We did say that, right?
Yes.
Okay. And we did, we also said that when men become depressed, it varies. It's a little different from women because they become tired, they become irritable, and sometimes even no energy, right? Why women are more depressed than men? One of the major problems is we're in a sort of a matriarchal society. And the bulk of the responsibility is on women. Plus, they have a cycle which is a yearly. Is it a yearly cycle or a monthly cycle? It's a monthly, right? Come on.
Post-traumatic stress.
So, when you leave my class, you remember things, right? So, yes, let me just finish up this before I take it. In fact, go ahead, because it may have something to do with it.
Yeah, I was going to say women are also more emotionally wired and they carry more burdens. They multitask more, whereas men compartmentalize things. we tend to be kind of all over, and we are more emotional based, so we carry
Yes.
a lot more weight.
Yes, because of the hormonal fluctuations also, it causes women, that what they call PMS. What does PMS mean?
Premenstrual.
Very good. So that type of monthly cycle cause them to go through various psychological yes, those hormonal changes does cause women to become more reactive and more agitated sometimes. And sometimes it's not that they can control it, okay? Now, within the home, the bulk of the responsibility is usually seen as the woman's role, right? So let's say a man and a woman is working full time, and the man comes home and he just take his newspaper and relax or and he's expecting his dinner and he's just waiting on the woman to cater to him because that's her role and so on. Can you imagine how that woman is feeling? And all those emotional reactions that she's going through? Can you imagine? Huh? You can imagine, right? Nobody's relating to that, right? Huh?
It happens all the time. It's happening a lot. It's happening
Yes.
all the time. With all these women working.
So say that again. Okay. A lot of it sometimes is cultural. But even if it is not cultural, the woman usually takes on the responsibility of the home. So when I tell folks that in my home, if I'm off a day or I get home a little early and I go down and I throw some clothes in the washing machine.
You're a good man.
Don't tell my wife that. There she is over there. Ask her. Ask her. Is he a good man?
Is he a good man? You don't have to name him.
She can ask.
You said to ask, that's what I'm asking.
I have no fear of that. I'm that confident.
That's good.
So my point is that I wish we could catch some more real men.
There you go. There you go.
Real men that helps the woman along. Because if we are able to recognize these factors, then we'll be able to do what? Help them more. And listen, men will realize that a happy wife is a happy life. Question there. That's why I said that if I could catch some men to teach them how to be real men.
There you go.
Okay? Very good. All right. So as we wrap up this section, I'll just take 2 more minutes. We'll just push the clock back a little bit and say something about anxiety. I won't even open the content. But anxiety is one of those ailments that has been affecting our people. Are you with me? One of my concerns is a lot of individuals who are affected by anxiety and depression, they do not seek help. In fact, about 97% of the African American population does not seek help. They believe they're so resilient, they're so strong, that there's no need. Now, I cannot tell you, my office is in a black neighborhood, and I cannot tell you how many Caucasian people that comes here for help. I cannot tell you how many. But as soon as their head hurt, something goes wrong, they're seeking help. But some of us as African Americans, we do not want anybody to know about what is happening. And sometimes they secretly go and do some harm to others and to themselves. because of the problems. I was doing a presentation in a church one day and we talked about abuse. And I remember an 85-year-old woman, she just eased down in her chair and she says, "Mercy." And I just walked over to her and pat her on the shoulder and I said, "We will talk." She says, "I have been abused for so long." I said, we will talk. But she couldn't hold it anymore. My point is, if we need help, we should seek it.
Amen. Amen.
I'm going to end on one. I have to end now, but I have to end on one point. Many of us, we prefer to go to the unconsecrated Philistine for help. When there are so many individuals in Israel that can help. Are you hearing me?
Yes.
Seek people of God. You know, I went to, a lady came to me once with her daughter. The daughter was 17 years old. And she said she went to somebody because the young lady was showing a lot of affection to another female, you know, and she thought it was abnormal as a Christian. And when she went to the therapist said, "So what is wrong with that? Everybody's doing it." Now, bear in mind that there are many therapists and psychiatrists and mental health workers who are practicing that type of behavior. And when you go to them, how can they help you? Are you hearing what I'm saying to you?
Yes.
Mr. Webb, can they help you? I trust that you would have gotten something from our presentation today.
Yes.
I'm going to come back in a little later to present, but now we must give time to the next presenter. All right? God bless and keep you. But I'll give my number.
Thank you. Okay, were you blessed by them?
Amen.
Thank you, Dr. Terrelon, his wife, and one of his sons over there. Just wave to us, Sister Terrelon. Okay, welcome to our training. And Dr. Terrelon has 2 more presentations. We'll be up after lunch. What are the presentations you'll be doing according to your schedule? Huh? What are the 2 presentations according to your schedule, if you look at your schedule? Healthy relationship and stress management. And in between, we have a few of you who are going to do your projects presentation upstairs. And also, a few of you will be giving testimony. So it's going to be a rich, well-involved day. I don't have to introduce our next presenter, Sister Heather Evans. You know her already, am I right?
Yes.
She was here with us during this week. So, Sister Evans, we're going to invite you to come now and do. Here she has 2 presentations to do this morning.
Happy Sabbath, everyone.
Happy Sabbath.
We're going to continue with our presentation while they're getting that together. If you see next, I believe the next presentation is emergency medicine. Do you see that? Now, hold on, there's no handouts in there. So I made handouts. I realized that the handouts weren't there. So if someone can give out the handouts for the class, it's kind of good.
You have a click over the front door. You are without the I'm going to use this upstairs for the show.
Medicine, kitchen medicine together. I don't believe you have any handouts in there.
That's
And then I have
not
another handout for plan.
that's the whole point.
In here. You kind of mentioned that before when I did here, so I made some handouts for you guys for that.
It's not new.
So we'll be giving those, we'll give those out, okay? The emergency medicine / kitchen medicine is just a little brief synopsis of some of the things that we
That's
learned.
all I got
And then
before now.
also a handout on,
That's
plans.
what the other one you missing. The one I got?
So I'm gonna
And the
continue
CD,
because we're running
that's
kind of
the CD there.
late, but when we look at emergency, before we go on, let's just bow
That's the
down
CD.
for at this point in time.
That's the
Dear Heavenly Father, we thank you so much for being such a kind, loving God. We ask for it in a special way that you will bless everyone that is here within the sound of my
That's the
voice.
one I
Father,
see.
they could be elsewhere, but they choose to be here, learning more of you in this medical missionary, this great medical missionary movement. We pray, Lord, that you will endow their minds with the knowledge, help them to retain the things that we learned here today. We thank you for the presence of your Holy Spirit and your holy angels that are here. And we pray, Lord, that all may have received a special blessing as a result of attending this medical missionary training. In the loving name of Jesus, I pray. Amen.
Amen.
I have to go on seconds.
Okay, all right, so we're gonna look at, okay, this is not, but we're gonna look, at emergency medicine. And when we think about emergency medicine, an emergency is something that's life-threatening. Okay, we're gonna go on, yeah. So we're thinking about things that are life-threatening when we think about emergency medicine. So if you look on here, if you see with your handout, it talks about the 911 call. And what's important about the 911 call is that when you are talking to the 911 operator, it is important that they hang up first. Not you hang up first, but they hang up first. I've had situations, when we do these health expos, which is another thing that's very important to tell you, any medical people that you have there, if you have numbers that are out of range, you should always make sure you let a doctor or a nurse that's there, one of the medical missionaries, be aware, because if those numbers are really out of range, we have to call 911. We had a situation that happened in Ellenville where there was somebody's blood pressure was very, very high. Ellenville wasn't a normal spot for us to go. We were visitors there. The person that did that individual's blood pressure never told anyone how elevated the blood pressure was. Later on, we heard that that individual died the next day. They had a stroke. Their blood pressure was so high. So it's a serious thing. That could have been something that could have been avoided if we were known about it. We could have called 911. They could have been hospitalized and their lives could have been possibly saved. So it is very important when you're doing health expos, if you have any numbers that are really out of range, you have to make sure you let a healthcare professional know, and they then need to follow up by getting the appropriate medical care and appropriate. Now, sometimes we do medical missionary work all over the world, so it's not always able to get that emergency medicine. So some of the things that I'm going to share with you here today. Always the first thing you do in a medical emergency is your spiritual 911. And what is that spiritual 911?
It's
prayer. And it doesn't have to be a long prayer, right? When Peter was sinking in the ocean, what did he say? Lord, save me. 3 words. So when you encounter an emergency, just ask the Lord to come and to help you. Now, when we're looking at it, we're thinking about emergencies. These are things that are life-threatening. Life-threatening. So, as you see here, life-threatening situations could be anything like difficulty breathing, because I don't know if you guys had the presentation on air yet. Did you have the presentation on air? Right. So you know you can't live any longer than 4 minutes without air. So anybody that's having difficulty breathing, and I can't stress to you enough, the things that I'm sharing with you are interventions that you're doing after you have made that 911 call, and you're doing this in the interim. Any medical emergency, do not fool around with it, doing the natural stuff first. Medical emergencies mean it's life-threatening, and you need to get advanced care. So that's very important to know. And the sooner you're able to get those individuals that advanced care, the better their outcome will be. So first you're looking at difficulty breathing. Anyone that's having a severe asthma attack, that's a situation where you would call 911. Chest pain, fainting, any kind of profuse bleeding, these are all things that should be considered medical emergencies, and 911 would be called, okay? So as we mentioned here already, the medical emergency, always remember to pray first and then call 911. Pray is your spiritual 911. The other thing is very important. Anyone that is exhibiting what you may think is a stroke or a heart attack or something serious, they will oftentimes tell you, I'm okay, I'm fine, don't worry about it. That's because they are in denial. do not take it from that person. And sometimes it could be difficult because that person could be a loved one or someone that you generally respect, your parents or your spouse, and you want to honor what that person says. But if you're looking at them and you're seeing that they don't look well, that they're having all the symptoms, that could possibly mean that this is something that's a medical emergency. You have to ignore what they're saying and you have to call the healthcare professionals. Let them come and make that decision. Let the ambulance come and make that decision, okay? So remember, they are more than likely going to be in denial because they don't want to believe that something serious is actually happening to them. There was a situation that happened at my church. In the morning, the wife said, she was a member of the church, and her husband was complaining of heartburn. Now, she had given him ackee and saltfish for breakfast, so she thought it was the ackee and saltfish. But he continued to complain of his heartburn, and she figured he'd be okay. She left him home with her elderly father, and she went to work. She came to church, only to get a call that when he was in the bathroom, he actually had a heart attack and he died. He had the symptoms, but because he was saying, I'm going to be okay, and she was saying that, maybe it was an ackee and saltfish. So some of the things that we're going to share, if anybody's having pain, because a lot of times, heart attack isn't always like chest pain like you would think. It is that epigastric pain, like if your stomach is upset. Now, if you give the person Maalox, Mylanta, or charcoal, and it doesn't, work, that could possibly be indicative that there's something more serious going on, and you need to go to the other level, okay? Don't just leave the person. Okay, so this is pretty much what we went through already. What is a medical emergency? Medical emergency can be anything that's life-threatening. When you think about a severe headache with weakness on one side or the other and an ability to move a limb, what possible disorder could that be? A stroke, right. Difficulty breathing, you mentioned, asthma attack, profuse bleeding, severe chest pain could be a heart attack. Now, heart attack manifests itself in different ways. It's not always severe chest pain. It could be, like I just mentioned, like an epigastric pain. It could be for a pain in the arm. Sometimes it could be jaw pain. It can manifest itself in various ways. But if you're doing various methods to try to relieve the pain and it continues, it's always important to try to go to the next level where you get more advanced medical care. Fainting also, an individual faints, that's something that needs to be followed up with. If they faint and they revive, they should really not just leave it alone. They should follow up because something made them faint. So you have to make sure you find out what it is that caused that problem, because more than likely without fixing it, it's going to occur again. Okay, so we mentioned this already. We went about 911 and we talked about Jesus stretched forth his hand and caught Peter when he said, Lord, save me. Oh, thou little faith, words did thou doubt. Now, Matthew 14:29, the prayer of faith is your spiritual 911. Jesus will immediately come to your assistance. In a medical emergency, we already went through this. And if in doubt, you always make the call. If there's any question in your mind, should you call or not, then the answer is that you should call. Because as I mentioned before, that individual will often be in denial and they're not able to make a rational decision at that time. Important, learn the addresses of places that you frequent. If there's a friend's house you go to often, friend's home, your job, the place of worship, you should be able to give clear, concise directions, or at least now be able to give the address, because most of the ambulances, all of them, are equipped with GPS. Now, this was a situation that actually happened to me. Our church was having 40 days of fasting and praying. The church was open from like 9 a.m. until about 10 o'clock at night. And it just happened that it was myself and one of the elders that was there. And watching him, he started to sweat profusely. And then the next thing I know, I just saw him just close his eyes and he just went down. Now, it was a church that I had just recently started going to, so I wasn't sure what the address was. And normally in a situation like that, you wouldn't leave the person, but I had to leave him as I'm making the 911 call, go to the front of the building to find out what the address is. What we suggest in churches is that somewhere in the foyer, that the address of that church is visible, that they now have that address in the foyer. And if you're able to, if there's more than one person stays with the person that's in distress, and someone else stays out front, so if they see the ambulance or the police car passing by, they can direct them to where they need to go. And after I mentioned this before, after placing the 911 call, you want to always stay on the phone until the operator hangs up. This way, you're sure that they've gotten all the information that they need to get so they can get to you quickly. We had a situation like this one time. There was a person who was experiencing chest pain, and we're waiting. Why is the ambulance taking so long? Come to find out that the person that called the ambulance was so excited and anxious and nervous, they gave the information. They said, "We need help, come now," hung up the phone. Never gave them the address. So they were busy trying to trace the call to find out where the call had come from. So always make sure in an emergency that you're not the one that's hanging up first, that the operator on the other side hangs up. Oftentimes they will keep you on the phone. So that's very important. Even if it's just you and the person, keep the line open so that you will be able to get further instructions for them. Now this is something I recommend, a natural remedies first aid kit. We're not allowed to have medications unless you're a medical professional, and even nurses, we're not allowed to give out medications, but you can have this natural remedies first aid kit. Recommend that you have one at home as well as have one at your church. And this natural remedies first aid kit should contain, and if you get a chance later, you can take a look over there. We have some of the things it should contain. Cayenne pepper, we mentioned yesterday. Let's see how many of you remember. Cayenne pepper is a vasoconstrictor where? Inside or outside the body?
Both. Oh, constrictor? Constrictor, inside. Inside.
Outside the body, because remember we talked about if you're bleeding, it works as a vasoconstrictor outside the body because it constricts and it stops the bleeding. Inside the body, it actually acts as a vasodilator, open up the veins inside. So outside the body, vasoconstrictor, inside the body, vasodilator. So you might want to add that in there. Now you should also have garlic or garlic capsules. Garlic has several things it does. It acts as a blood thinner. It also has an antibiotic effect, and it lowers blood pressure. That's not up there, so you might want to add that in. It actually helps to lower your blood pressure.
It's there.
Nutmeg we talked about yesterday. Remember we talked about, well not yesterday, I think it was 2 days ago, foods that should be utilized as medicine and not utilized as food, and we mentioned that nutmeg is one of those things, cayenne pepper is one of those things. Now you see, garlic is something that can be used either way. It can be used as either food or it can be used as medicine. But nutmeg is one of the things that we would prefer you not to use, because when you would need to use it medicinally, it will not have the same effect because your body would have acclimated itself to it. White willow bark extract is a natural painkiller. Turmeric acts as an anti-inflammatory. It helps fight against colds and flu. And something everybody should have is charcoal. Charcoal powder, charcoal pills, charcoal patch. It's good for so many things. It's good for upset stomach, if someone is accidentally poisoned, insect bites, swelling, pain. It can even be utilized with patients that have cancer. What it does is it actually helps to draw and pull the toxins and poisons out of the body. Now we mentioned here a small juice box or large bottle of juice with cups. That was the other situation that I had that day when the elder passed out. We had a first aid kit, but it was locked up, couldn't get to it. So that's something that we recommend, that your first aid kit should be someplace that is visible. I know we're concerned, doesn't have to be visible, but it should be someplace where any individual can get to it. Because a lot of times I know we're concerned about people taking things out and stuff, or maybe a high cabinet somewhere. But what good is having a first aid kit if you can't get to it when you need it? The other thing that day was the kitchen was locked. I didn't know if his blood sugar was low, couldn't get into the kitchen. So we recommend in the same kit have like a box of juice or so, because if the person is diabetic, they would need to raise their blood sugar quickly, and the juice would help to do that. So again, this is your Nature's Remedies First Aid Kit. And we recommend that you have one at home as well as at your church. Okay, how many of you here are trained in CPR? Okay, pretty good. We'd like to have all of you trained in CPR, because that's the one thing that can really make a difference in saving individuals' lives. It was good. It was a good amount of you. Sometimes we have very few people that are trained in CPR, but we recommend that you do the CPR certification. And any of you trained in basic first aid? Any basic first aid? Okay, wonderful. And that's another thing. Usually you can do the CPR and the first aid together. This is vitally important. Trained in disaster preparedness. Can I see the hands of those trained in disaster preparedness? Not as many. Dr. Kerr, who's in charge of community services at Northeastern Conference, periodically has disaster preparedness classes. When you see that he's offering those classes, I recommend that you take it, because as medical missionaries, you tend to be in the front line. I remember before Hurricane Sandy, I don't know why, I just kept feeling very impressed that the medical missionaries should be trained in disaster preparedness. And I initially mentioned it to Pastor Daly, and he said, oh, the medical missionaries have so much to do. I said, I can't explain it to you, I just feel like they need to know. He said, well, Sister Evans, if that's what God is impressing to you, go ahead and do it. So we made a special class specifically for the medical missionaries. When Hurricane Sandy came, those medical missionaries were the primary ones that were out in the forefront, that were going out and making a difference in their lives. So you as a medical missionary, we don't have to ask, is there going to be a disaster? We know that it's when is going to be the next disaster. Because as we're living in the last days, there's no doubt that there's going to be more disasters. And we need to be prepared to be able to help individuals. So I recommend that you do take that disaster preparedness class. So we're going to look at a heart attack now. What are some of the symptoms of a heart attack? Chest discomfort or pain, dizziness, fainting, discomfort or pain in any other area of the upper body. So it could be your arm, it could be the jaw, it doesn't necessarily have to be in the chest area. It could be shortness of breath, mind your way, I'm sorry. Heartburn or indigestion that does not go away with either charcoal or acids. That was one of the symptoms that I mentioned to you that the individual from our church had. Symptoms of heart attack present differently in various individuals. So it presents differently in women. Sometimes it presents differently if somebody has like they're slow, like developmentally disabled. Oftentimes the victim will be in denial. That is something that you have to keep in mind. You're looking at the person. If you're seeing them exhibiting these symptoms, you have to ignore what they say and you have to go to the next step. They might be upset, but it's better that you err in being too cautious than you take a chance and then you're not able to help the person. Because in the case of a heart attack or stroke, the sooner you're able to get treatment, the better the outcome. Also note, as I mentioned here, that symptoms of heart attack are less clear in women, elderly, and those that have diabetes. These people may describe the uncomfortable feeling in the chest as an ache, heartburn, or may even complain of back pain, jaw, or shoulder pain. So please keep that in mind. So what do? Pray. Which is our spiritual 911, right? Then we call 911. In the case of a heart attack, you will have the person take, now these are things, you're going to see things in here that we mentioned to you before are not foods. You're going to see some things that we said you shouldn't use, but you shouldn't use them on a regular basis. And these emergency situations are when these things can be utilized. So you're going to have the person take cayenne pepper, 1/8 teaspoon in 4 ounces of water. That's what you're going to have them drink. Or they can place the powdered cayenne under the tongue. You make a little paste with water and put it under the tongue. Now, people often ask, is it going to burn? Yes, it's going to burn. But would you rather have the burning, or would you rather suffer the major effects of a heart attack? Then you can also take 1 tablespoon of apple cider vinegar in 8 ounces of water. Okay, now this is something that you would not normally do. You would normally take apple cider vinegar, but in a situation like this, you can. The other thing that you can do either with yourself or with the person, if you don't know CPR, the person hasn't passed out yet, is to ask the person to cough repeatedly and very vigorously, taking deep breaths before each cough. This actually helps to massage the heart. The cough must be deep and prolonged, is when coughing up sputum from deep in the chest. And you're going to repeat this about every 2 seconds without letting up until help arrives. The heart is beating normally again, or the person passes out. So one of those 3 things are going to happen. The heart starts beating normally again, or the individual passes out, or help arrives. Okay, these deep breaths give oxygen into the lungs, and the coughing movement squeezes the heart and keeps the blood circulating. If the individual part passes out, then you would initiate CPR. Okay? So that's why it's important for you to know CPR. Hopefully, you are here in the United States and help can come to you quickly. I think that we often don't realize how good we have it here. I was in Trinidad in November on a mission trip, and there was an individual there that actually, they came and got me this, and Sister Evans, we were doing consultation, he's not breathing and he has no pulse. In my mind, I was like, what do you mean he's not breathing and has no pulse? But when I went, he really was not breathing and had no pulse. We initiated CPR. It was an individual that had end-stage brain cancer. Initiated CPR and called, I think it's 811 in Trinidad. Literally, the hospital was right across the street. We could see the hospital from where we are. We could walk to the hospital. They never came. They said that in Trinidad, and we could see the ambulance. That ambulance was only to transport people that were there ready to a different hospital. And that the ambulance that would have needed to come, even though they're right across the street, was 20 minutes away. What we did is we just put him in the back of somebody's pickup truck and drove him across the street. I mean, he didn't make it anyway, but he was end-stage brain cancer. But that made me realize how wonderful we have healthcare here. We complain a lot, but really, that would have never happened in the United States. That would have never happened here. Got a question?
Speak up louder.
I can't hear you.
I said, a person who had a stroke, did not like must go on and eat it.
We didn't get to that yet, but we'll talk to you about it in a minute. But the nutmeg should go on the side of the mouth. That is, you're seeing the symptoms of the stroke. It doesn't necessarily have to be under the tongue, but on the side of the mouth where the stroke is. So let's go on. So what is a stroke? A stroke is a rupture of a blood vessel or a formation of a clot that blocks the flow of blood in the veins. So two things can cause a stroke. A hemorrhagic stroke is where the person is actually bleeding out, or a clot actually blocks the flow so that the blood has nutrients, so the brain is not being nourished, so that part of the brain starts to die. So the signs and symptoms, I'm sorry. Well, I would like, because of time, if you don't mind, if you could hold your questions to the end, is that okay? I'll answer yours, but after this, I just want to hold the questions to the end because we started late, and we have one other presentation. I want to make sure that you get all the information. But write down your questions and I will answer them at the end.
Now it's recorded that if you have a stroke on the right side of the brain, it will affect the left side of the body. Now you see the nutmeg.
Whatever side that is drooping, that's the side you put it on. Whatever side is affected, even it doesn't go according to the brain, it goes according to what side you see that's affected. So if they have this twisted on this side and it's going down, that's the side that you can put it on. The side that's being affected.
How do you apply the nutmeg? That's the last question. Or you said on that side.
Okay, we're gonna talk about that as we come, that's coming up, we're gonna get to that, okay? So the signs and symptoms of a stroke are usually, and you're watching them, and next thing you know, you see them kind of pass out, or you see weakness on one side of the face or arms, or they all of a sudden can't walk anymore, they appear to be very confused, they have trouble speaking or understanding what you're saying.